of this discussion. So I want to welcome you to the Love Doesn't Hurt Town Hall, presented by LA Focus newspaper in partnership with California Black Media and funded from Blue Shield of California Foundation. Now, many of you may have heard about it was just a big headline that happened a few years back with Michelle Avon. She was a high-level executive at Bank of America, and she's someone who would hardly fit the profile of what we typically think of as a victim of domestic violence. But on August 5th, at the hands of her boyfriend, she was violently beaten. Actually, it was an ex-boyfriend, and she made headlines because of this. And she was one of the statistics. The statistics are one in 3 women and 1 of 5 men who become victims and experience rape, stalking, physical violence, and intimate partner relationships. It happens, unfortunately, far too often than what we know, what we hope for. And tonight, what we want to do is bring to light. We want to bring some information. We want to usher in some freedom for some folks. And I want to get this thing started with our first panelist, our first guest. Our first guest for tonight is Dr. Rose Parker. And I'm gonna listen, these folks are very accomplished. Dr. Rose Parker knows all too well stories of domestic abuse. On December 7th, 2000, she herself made national news, becoming the first woman to be released from prison by a former California governor, Gray Davis. At that time, she had been sentenced to 27 years to life for murdering her estranged boyfriend at that time, even though it was in self-defense. You guys, help me welcome to this panel for discussion, Dr. Rose Parker. Hello,
Hi.
beautiful.
Hi, good evening. And thank you guys for having me. I'm really just grateful and just feel blessed to be amongst my sisters, talking about a subject that is not talked about enough. People shy when they see an event that says, when they see the word domestic violence, especially men and women that are aggressive, they just think it doesn't apply to them. They automatically think it doesn't apply to them, And
right. So can you share with us your personal story with and how you navigated your personal experience?
Well, just trying to bring it to a place that will be really good at this particular time. Being in a relationship that I knew was not right. Why would you hit me? Why would you want me to have, because a person, wanted me to have sex with you and you don't even know me. And I'm looking at your fingernails and they're dirty and you're rich, you know what I'm saying? And the gold is dirty, I'm just a lot of little things that I pay attention to. If you're wealthy, clean your gold, you know what I'm saying? Get your manicure, whatever. And so
these are things you were thinking beforehand or during the relationship?
This is like in the beginning, but being transparent, I had start using drugs a little bit, but not knowing that it's addictive. I didn't know, that you stay up, and I didn't know all these things. I just tried it a couple times, and the guy that I was with, that I had got involved with at that particular time, saw that. I'm only 21 or 22, and he took advantage of that and started just piling me drugs and feeding me drugs, and it was just a lot. So the beatings, with the phone cord, my head being busted open, and there's an abuser it's like when you see the wheel and you got the honeymoon stage, and then the the tiptoe, then it gets like volatile. So they just have a certain way, and all of them do. When I was incarcerated, and I was in this group called Convicted Women Against Abuse. And at that time, because when I went to prison, they weren't talking about you just got your ass whooped. You just got knocked upside your head. There wasn't the words domestic violence and abuse or none of that. That wasn't the language. So I was in this group.
Interesting.
This is like 1990. And that's when Gloria Aldridge and they were trying to, get involved with some of the women that were abused. But what happened was they were talking about abuse. And I promise you, one lady was sharing her story. I could have swore she knew the same guy. Wow. Because they're all so similar. There's just a pattern that abusers have. Yes. And I'm not prejudiced. You can be, no matter what level of life, and male or female. Because especially in same-sex relationships, there's a lot of abuse. So in my personal case, I got away from my abuser. I didn't set his house on fire, blow him up, or none of that. I didn't do any of that. I got the hell away from him, but he followed me.
Okay.
He came to my house. He lived in Woodland Hills. I live in Ontario. And he came to my house, held me hostage 4 days, tried to feed me drugs. I'm pregnant. When my situation happened, I grabbed the gun, and because my brother came to rescue me, because he's like, what's going on with my sister, And so he hit him. He just came in and said, what's happening? But when he said what's happening, he didn't wait for a response. He said what's happening, went pow.
So your brother was there as well too. Your brother was able to find you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so I grabbed the gun, and I don't know how to work a gun. I knew I saw one that had the little red dot, but it didn't have a little red dot. It had the little round thing. So I just went like this and shot, and they're like right together. So the bullet hit my brother and it hit him. So it wounded my brother and it killed him. But he ran. So I didn't think he was shot, because my brother was like, oh, so I'm like, I shot my brother. So then he ran down the stairs, and I knew he had a Uzi in the car. So my brother ran down there, and then I ran back down there, and then I wanted to shoot him between the eyes. That's what I told the police. I guess, because I wanted to. I'm thinking all this stuff this man did to me.
So you were actually going for a kill. You weren't going to hurt him or to stop it in the moment. You wanted, that was the goal.
To be honest, if he didn't die, we all die. I'm dealing with an Al Capone,
and that was your state of mind in the moment. Yeah, right. That's
I'm
what
dealing
you're
with
thinking.
Scarface for real. I'm dealing with a Scarface for real, And so, and I watched him. He showed me a jar of ears. Wow. I watched him. It's a lot of, I have a book out, but there's a lot of things I haven't said in the book or said in my speaking engagements. But he was well known. And I'm going to say this one thing, because it can be verified. Even in that Natalie Cole movie, there's a scene when you see her in the kitchen with a drug dealer called Mr. A. And her son nearly drowns because she's dealing with the drug man. That's him. He was all in there. And I don't know, I'm a kid.
So when you say that's him, for clarity, do you mean, because we've already established, a lot of abusers have the same profile. So when you say that's him, do you mean they were literally talking about him, or do you mean that was somebody that behaved just like this guy that you were involved with?
Yeah, he kept, like when people would hear about Natalie Cole always relapsing and stuff like that, when she would go to a place, like rehab place, when she come back, he meet her at he got a limo for her at the airport with drugs. She get in the limo, come straight over there,
Right.
So that kind of stuff. after a while, like a lot of different people, entertainers used to come over, but after a while, he just kind of pushed everybody away because he could have anybody. He was rich, but he just wanted just me there, and but then he would hit me in front of people, and so my father's a preacher, and I was married. My first husband, he was in a Soul Train gang band, but an original Gap band, and I divorced him because he hollered at me. He used to like always holler like I'm gonna die. So I'm not gonna just stay and let somebody mistreat me like it's okay. It's not. And I got the hell away from him. So for a couple months, I was free. But then he came to my house, and go ahead.
No. I was gonna say that I definitely want to hear more from you. We're definitely later on, we're gonna open up for Q&A. But one of the things I know that we're gonna be hitting on is how do you find the gumption to get away? When you said you got away from him, we want to learn more about how you got away from him. And just really quick, what's the name of your book?
Beat Up, Beat Down, and Still Standing.
Wow. Beat up, beat down,
by the system.
and
I was beat up by the system. I mean, I was beat up by him,
and
then I was beat down by the system. But I'm still standing. I got that when I was locked up, doing life, no hope of getting out. I start writing my book, Beat Up, Beat Down, and Still Standing, because I was still standing knowing that I was coming home. I didn't care what they said.
Well, there's a testament right there that you were able to begin at least writing a book. Well, what a wonderful, not a wonderful, but a powerful story. And I want you to stick around because we definitely have some questions for you. Okay. So now I want to go ahead and introduce to you another wonderful woman that makes up our panelists tonight, Candy Lewis. Candy is of the Positive Results Center, whose mission is to help people create healthy relationships and to prevent and end violence and abuse and to live out their best lives. So come on, y'all, help me usher in Candy Lewis. Hey, where you at, Candy?
I'm here trying to unmute myself, but the system won't let me. So I'm going to need you all. Okay, here we go.
Okay, there's Candy. Okay. Let's see if we can get her in. Let me tell you something. When you are doing things live, you got to be able to roll with the punches. So here you are. Yes, you do. And here we are rolling with these punches. So Candy, tell us a little bit about you and your story.
Okay.
What is the message you want us to have tonight?
So I am Candy Lewis, and I'm the CEO of Positive Results Center. We address trauma from a cultural and age perspective. We specialize in teen dating, domestic and interpersonal violence, sexual assault, and bullying. And I want people to understand that violence and abuse starts in the womb and that it impacts and affects everyone. Many times we think it's just the person who was abused. However, that's not the case. It affects their children, it affects their family, their coworkers, their community. And we have seen where people have been shot at work, at churches, down the street and around the corner. And so we sometimes get it confused thinking like, that doesn't impact me, it does not affect me, but it affects all of us. And as long as there are abusers and pedophiles and people that are doing harm, then all of us need to be aware, because you never know when it's going to impact you personally.
And that's interesting that you should say that, because while you're talking, I'm thinking, for sure, domestic violence definitely hit my home. I witnessed it. At some point in my life, I've experienced it. And I think it'd be interesting. I wish I had thought about doing a poll tonight just to see how many people have, in whatever shape, form, or fashion, have been affected by domestic abuse or domestic violence. It would be interesting to know.
It's something really that impacts so many people. And this is the work that we do. And it's really strange because before I started doing this work, I thought, okay, I don't really know anyone. And then once I started doing the work and asking the right questions without making someone feel like they're being shamed or blamed or just having a regular everyday dialogue, then we start to find out everyone. There's 5 people I know that have not been, they say, impacted. But I think
Right.
that's because a lot of times they think that if I'm not being beat up, I'm not in an
Myself.
abusive relationship.
Right.
Right.
Or
But
what you mean is if you're not being physically assaulted.
right. So
Okay, I understand.
there's so many forms of violence that we don't think about. We all hear about the domestic violence. We
Right.
also hear about the verbal and emotional abuse. And I mean, right now, if you look at, I don't know a single person who has either been in the store, the movies, or driving down the street who hasn't heard a parent or an adult cuss a kid out and call him a stupid mofo. But that's abuse, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Mind you, yeah,
You
that's
might be
abuse.
opening some eyes and stepping on some toes right now.
Well, I want to step on those toes. Let's let the
Yeah.
world know, because what we're doing is we are setting our children up for a lifetime of abuse, to either accept abuse or be abused. But we're also talking about spiritual abuse. They use the
Hmm.
Bible on you and tell you that God this and God that, and that's a form of abuse. The financial abuse and the medical abuse, because there's some people who say, oh, my boyfriend or my girlfriend or my spouse loves me, but know that their spouse is out having sex with someone else and won't allow them to use a condom. That's abuse.
That's interesting.
Mhm.
So, of these things that you're describing, how much of this do you run across in your line of work? And I'll ask that question first.
All day, every day.
All day. So
All
this is a
day,
common
every
occurrence.
day. Yes, so what people should know is that everyone's abuse looks different. And so we could have 100 people in the room, and there's going to be 100 different forms of abuse, even if it's verbal, that it's going to be show up differently for each person. And so when you think about it, you can't say, oh, that hasn't happened or it won't happen. It will. It does. And it happens to everyone. We've dealt with some kids that were in the 5th and 6th grade that are in abusive relationships with their little boyfriend or girlfriend.
Fifth and sixth
Um,
grade. That's 10 and
yeah,
11 years old.
let me tell you, there was a school, I can't mention their name, but they were here in Southern California, and 5th, 6th, and 7th graders were playing this little game called the rape game. Wow.
Whoa.
Right. And
Okay. Before, because I want to come back to this.
okay, yeah.
I want to come back to this.
Right.
But just really quick, I'm coming back to the rape game. Okay. But just really quick, the positive center where
Positive results
the
center.
the positive results center where you're doing your work. The goal and the mission is to, at the end of the day, help people live their best lives. Can you just, in a couple of words, help me to know how you help others live their best lives?
Sure. Our mission is to help people have healthy relationships and to create awareness to prevent and end violence and abuse. So most people are in abusive relationships or seen it. However, they don't have the words for it. So we help people to understand that no matter what has happened to you, that's not who you are. That's what has happened to you. And that does not have to dictate your future. We can change the narrative of what happened in the past by helping people to understand the power that's within themselves and understand that this right here is your biggest asset. And so it doesn't matter what someone else says, because that's not your truth. That might be what they believe.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, well, you just hang on. We're gonna double back around. We're gonna double back around. But right now, I want to take a moment and bring in another one of our wonderful panelists. We have up next joining in with us, Ms. Charmaine Davis. She is the Director of Family Wellness at the Genesee Center, which is a nationally recognized nonprofit domestic violence prevention and intervention organization based where? right here in Los Angeles. And it's been offering life-saving services for the last 40 years. That's 4 whole decades. I know I've personally joined up and done some work with the Genesee Center. So you guys, let's welcome to the panel, Sharman Davis. Hey, Sharman.
Hello, hello.
How are you, my dear?
I'm well, and you got it right, Sharman.
Sharman, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing and the message that you want to share with us tonight.
Genesee has been around, like you said, for years and years and years. And what we do is we is a domestic violence organization. So folks come to us when they are experiencing it, and it's not just women, it's women, children, families, it's men, whoever is experiencing domestic violence. And we offer all of those services that folks who are trying to break the cycle, trying to get away and want to heal, all of those services that they need, legal, mental health, vocational, case management, anything they need is what we provide. And housing, of course, it was a huge service that's needed. So we give everything to help our clients to gain, self-sufficiency so that they can move on with their lives.
Good deal. So is there a criteria that, women, who is it open to women, children, men? Is it just women? Sometimes I know there's women and children. Is there a particular criteria that a person would have to meet in order to get services through Genesee Center?
The criteria is to experience domestic violence, and we don't care who you are or, what ethnicity, anything, a woman, man, again, children. All you have, the criteria is just experiencing domestic violence and we help.
So just for, again, a bit of clarity, we just learned from Candy Lewis that violence can be defined differently for each individual. So for Genesee Center, how do you define domestic violence?
Domestic violence, and our CEO, Karen Earl, always says that domestic violence affects everyone in that house. So it's not just about the partners. It's not just about mom and dad or mom and mom or dad and dad. It's about everyone in that home, right? So everyone in the home that is experiencing the domestic violence they're experiencing trauma. So what we do is we definitely give all the services that we have to everyone in that home. The whole family receives services. I know, lots of organizations, I guess they do not feel comfortable with men in their organizations or even sons. Because a lot of our clients have sons, and by 12, they're looking like men. But we take everyone. We take everyone in the home.
So does it mean that it has to be physical abuse? Can you qualify if it's emotional or sexual?
Absolutely.
Any
form of domestic violence is domestic violence, and it's harmful and it's traumatic. Everyone deals and grieves in their own way, in different ways, and everyone's idea of what trauma is how they perceive it. Right? Something can be really traumatic to me and may not be for you, but it doesn't matter if you're experiencing emotional or psychological, sexual, financial, and financial is one of the hardest parts of of that circle to identify. But any form of domestic violence that you are experiencing, we will help you.
Okay, good deal. Well, I would love for you to stick around. I know you're on the panel. We have many more questions that we want to throw your way. And keep in mind, I'm going to be opening the floor for your questions. We want to be able to make sure that we can get all. We're going to really make an attempt to get all of your questions answered. So be prepared to put your questions in the comments, and then we're going to do our best to address them. Finally, coming to the panel, we have joining us Dwayna Hall Henderson. Dwayna is both a survivor and, I told you, rays of sunshine are coming. She's also now a counselor to women who were also in abusive relationships. Dwayna and I met years ago. She was a guest of for one of the Women Breaking Free conferences that we did years ago, and her story is really powerful. Dwayna, can you tell us a little bit about your story, your journey? And I love that you're using it to pay forward today.
Yes, yes. So, I got to start it like this as a poet.
Okay.
Kitchen floor. In a pool of my own blood, I was lying as a man repeatedly stabbed me. I could see that I was dying and no one was around to hear me crying. In 2000, I was stabbed 22 times and left for dead by my fiance at the time. And it seemed so unreal while I was laying in the hospital bed with these tubes going through my side because my lungs had collapsed. And this is after having multiple surgeries. And I wake up in this hospital bed, also scary because they gave me an alias. So I woke up with people calling me a strange name, someone else's name. And that was for my protection. They do that sometimes for survivors. So this was all happening very fast. And ironically, they had the TV on in my room and multiple stories about domestic violence scenarios that were similar to mine, women being stabbed by their boyfriends, just that same day was playing on the TV. And then my story, I look up and saw him, my abuser. They said earlier, this happened earlier today, a man tried to kill his fiance and I see him on the ground as all these police are surrounding him and trying to arrest him. And it just put me in shock, like all over again, as I was trying to process what just happened to me, because this completely shook up my life. Then having to deal with what I call the now what phase of trauma. And that's really figuring out what is my new normal now? How do I move forward after that? And for me, that now what phase and that new normal included people giving me lots of stares all the time because I have scars from the stabs. And it also included being shamed, even by people that I thought were friends or whatever. I was being shamed because I allowed this to happen to me. Like, how could you let this happen to you? So many survivors experience that type of shame, which kind of sends you into a second phase of trauma. So now, as a motivational speaker and author and poet, it's very, very important, high on my list, to disrupt the shame that is surrounding domestic violence. Just break that up, get it out of here, because that really, holds back your healing. So disrupting the shame is very high on my list, and just helping women out there reclaim their whole identity so they can rebuild their lives and live their whole blessed life.
I love disrupting the shame. Yes. I always say shamers ought to be shamed.
Yes.
Shamers ought to be shamed. And you phrased it perfectly. It's re-traumatizing, because shame brings forth trauma all in and of itself. Most people who are led to feel shame experience some mental health disorder, or at least bouts of mental health issues like depression and anxiety. Of course, I'm depressed and you're shaming me. I thought you were my support system. And when you got society coming at you as if you did something wrong, and here I am, just a survivor. And I don't mean just in a demeaning or diminishing way. I mean, I'm a survivor. Why am I being shamed in this moment? Let me tell you, to survivor, you are definitely a survivor.
Amen.
Dr. Rose Parker, survivors. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because unfortunately everybody is not a survivor, and there is a lot of shaming that surrounds this topic of domestic violence. And like Sharman said, it happens and Candy Lewis said it as well. It happens in all different kinds of ways. It's psychological, it's emotional. It's sexual sometimes, it's verbal, it's mind controlling, people getting gaslit. That is a form of abuse. And so I'm glad that right off the bat, we're talking about the fact that domestic violence isn't always just physical violence in the home. So this is really, really good stuff. It's really, really important stuff. Once again, so glad that you ladies have joined us today. I want to take some questions. If we have any questions, I'm not sure if we have any yet, but in the meantime, let me tell you, I have some questions for you guys. And I'm going to start with Candy. I'm going to start with you, Candy. My question for you is, why is, not why, who is more likely to get abused, and why do you think that is?
The Black woman is more likely to be abused than anyone else. And when I say the Black woman, I'm talking about Black women and girls, because violence happens to us from birth to death. And when you look at domestic violence, we have the highest percentage of violence and abuse that is happening to us. And I really believe it's because I personally believe that we are the Alpha and the Omega. And so we are very powerful. And so in order to destroy power, you got to kill the base. And so people try to kill us. And, we can take over this whole world. If we put if we have a group of people in a room, and there's, let's say, 100 people, you put 2 Black women in the room, we can take over that room. And so we are very intimidating when we speak in some cases because we're knowledgeable and we're powerful. But on the other side to that, when you look at us, people do not believe us. So in order for someone to abuse, you have to have a victim. And in many cases, because people don't stand up for Black women, and people will abuse Black women. And if you look at your average Black girl, she is adultized at 4 and 5 years old. And so she's no longer a child. Very often people will look at us and say, look at her booty, and look at her growing her breasts. They're sexualizing us. And, for the longest, it was believed that we couldn't experience pain. So if we can't experience pain, how in the world are you possibly raping us or beating us? That's not a possibility. And so those are some of the things that we have to think about. We have to get people to trust Black women, stand up and support Black women, and protect and encourage Black women.
Well, a lot of what you said is very enlightening. It makes me want to toss this to you, Charmin. What role does a strong Black woman stereotype play in domestic violence? And that is exactly what Candy is kind of hitting on, that there's a stereotype that we can take more, we can handle more, and we label that as strong. What might you have to say about that?
We do. We label it as strong, and we inherited it. It's generational, right? We internalize that we are supposed to be strong. We are the ones that we can count on. And when you look at that from the intersect of domestic violence and Black women and racism, you look at a marginalized population of folks who can't trust. Who do we trust? If we can't trust anyone, we have to trust ourselves. And therefore, we are the strong ones. We wear many hats. And so when we've reached out for help in the past, right, this is generational. So we reached out for help. Again, we've lost our children. Someone was killed. We don't know who we can trust in this system. And this is systemic racism. We know that. But when you talk about that strong woman knows that she's the only one that we can count on. who else, where else does she go? And I appreciate this whole panel, because it's places like this that when we can have folks to understand it from that perspective as to why Black women are suffering in silence, why they don't reach out for help, because organizations, and I'm so just overjoyed for places like the Genesis Center, need to understand what these Black women go through every day.
Well,
can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
I'm sorry, and Sharman said this without saying it, is that we are very often not believed. So the things that we say, people do not believe us, they don't trust us. And so people who victimize go after people that nobody else is going to believe. That's why they go after Black women and children. Nobody's going to believe them.
You know what? That's a very, very unfortunate truth. And it kind of, when that happens, when you're not believed, you really move a victim of this type of abuse from being, abused into, now we're into psychological and mental crisis. And then they're coming to see me. And I have to say, based on my practice and my experience in psychotherapy, 98% of the time when a victim of abuse comes in and they're not believed, they struggle, and they struggle in a way that's different from people working it out who were believed and has support around them. Like Dwayne said, it's re-traumatizing to go through this and then not be believed. And the work to recovery even looks different. So, I was gonna segue that back to you, Dwayne, because she's talking about what's expected of the Black woman and the re-traumatizing. When you made the comment, why did you stay? How could you let that happen? So my question to you is, how did you respond and deal with that?
Ooh. I really didn't know how to respond at that time.
At that time,
I did not know how to respond. Like now, when I speak out, I try to explain to my audiences, to educate them. It's not that simple. It is never that simple as to, just walk out the door when you are in the midst of true violence. And that's something that people don't understand. The violence builds up. The person kind of gets you tied in mentally first, kind of intimidated mentally first before they even put their hands on you. So that's kind of how the control happens, and they keep control of
still you. The grooming.
So it is not as simple as, just walk out the door. Because like for me, honestly, I had to, in a situation, I had to lie, and keep secrets as I planned, as I moved little twigs, little by little, planning to leave. You can't just tell someone who is violent, I'm going to leave you. No, because you may not make it out of there. So, there's a process to it. And something else that I wanted to say about expectations, if we could even back up to talking about childhood, I've been told that it happens in a lot of Black households, and I know it happened in mine. The whole, what happens in this house stays in this house. The problem with that is, I understand you don't need to tell people all your business, but the problem with that is, like for me, it got to a point where I felt like I was responsible as this Black woman to keep that business in our house, which means not telling, which means not speaking up and saying I'm being hurting, which means not saying I am not okay. So that's another problem there. How are we training our children? Like, I think it was Candy that you were speaking up on how it's happening younger and younger. Well, if we're teaching our children basically not to speak on things, not to talk about what's happening that's bothering us, what's going to happen when they grow up and they're in this abusive relationship? The mindset is, and this comes back to, as Sharman was talking about, the strong Black woman, that's who I have to be. That's what I learned as a child. You can't tell our business. You have to be this strong Black woman. So whatever's going on over here with you and this dude, girl, you got to figure it out by yourself. keep it to yourself. You can't tell people this. So all of that really makes a difference in why you don't leave. If you feel like you can't even express to other people that something is going on, how are you going to feel like I can leave? And this makes this. I'm gonna leave and go where? That's another question I would tell people. I'm gonna leave and go where? Where
Well,
am I going?
yeah.
Where
You're
am I
going to Genesee Center to find out what you can
where
do
am I
from
going?
here.
Like Sharman, I think you touched very lightly on financial abuse. Financial abuse can include where everything financial is tied into that man, that abuser. So now you're dependent on your abuser. So where you finna go? When people say, why don't you just leave? Where you going, girl? You have no money, you have no resources, you have to be strong. Where are you gonna go? How are you gonna leave? That's my question back. Where you going? How you gonna leave?
And when I
Where
said
you going?
generational, when you were a child and you were told not to tell, you were being taught to internalize that you were to be strong. You were to keep your secrets in the house, what you were feeling, keep it inside. And that's how we handle things. And that's why I said generational, and we are taught to be strong. We're also taught, because we see our parents and their struggles, we can't trust the man or whoever, whatever, system is there to help us. And we are taught this over and over, and it gives us reason to pause, reason to say, some statistics that are just amazing that when you listen to. So African-American women, we know, are about 3 or 4 times more likely to die, after leaving their abusers. But we are 8% of the population, right? Yet we are 22% of homicides that occur because of domestic violence is African-American women. We suffer in silence. We are the strong ones. We don't have resources readily out there to help us. And it's something that has to be addressed.
So,
whenever you guys.
well, I'm getting, okay, I was going to throw something to you because Sharman, what you're saying is, we're keep it to yourself. And then we're witnessing all kinds of stuff. We're experiencing all kinds of stuff where, we're seeing these things. And then we just begin to normalize it. Right. And then we wonder why we have multiple relationships that are abusive. So I was actually going to run by you, Dr. Rose, because you mentioned there were some relationships that you were in before that were slightly abusive. So can you speak to that? Why is it that sometimes there are multiple partners, abusive partners?
That kind of made me feel a little bad back then, like, do I attract abusers? But in my first relationship, and I married at 16 years old, I was 16, that was back when you kind of marry when you're young. And so, but again, after I was married like 6 years, 1 child, guess what? I left him. I left him a few times because he kept trying to get back.
It's hard.
But the first time I left him, and the place was mine. My parents owned the house and I lived in it, so he had to go. And then when he came back, then later on, when we were together in Los Angeles, and they were like on the road. Like, as long as he was on the road, I was fine. But then he wanted either send me on the road because I like to go on the road. But when he came back, I left my place with him in it, and went and got me a furnished apartment in a whole nother city.
So you figured out a way to get out of that thing. You figured out a way to get out of that thing.
Left that thing because now I want to shout the Tell It campaign. Tell it. Now I have an organization called Saving Our Women International. And one of the things that we do is have a support group every Monday night at 6:00. And one of the things that I encourage the women that are going through situations, I tell them that to just keep calling. If it gets serious, then you just got to go or you just have to leave.
Well,
See, when Miss Dwania was talking about, because you just have to get to a point. I don't care about nothing. I mean, I was with a rich man. He would buy me anything. Keep your money. I'll buy my own lamps.
right.
I will get my own.
Right.
I'm butt naked. I'm out of here.
So you're saying no matter what, tell it, shout it, tell it, and then by any means necessary, leave if you need to. But hold on one second. We have a question. We have a comment that I want to bring to the platform from a viewer on YouTube, Ruby. Ruby says she was always told to take it to the church. I know what happens in this house stays in this house, but Ruby was told to take it to the church. I have a more modern answer to that, but let me find out. Dwania, I'm going to just bring it to you simply because you had a big response. Was that response because you did take it to the church, or you don't think it should be taken to the church?
Church people knew, and it was a mixed thing. There were some genuinely supportive people, but there were also a lot of people who were part of that shaming group. So, and I'm sure that other people have experienced that, where sometimes they are, not met with the love that they need. So they're not wanting to go to church. I actually know a young couple who was married, and her husband was beating her every night. And she went to some of the ladies in the church and told them, because she couldn't hold it in anymore. She was desperate for some help. And they told her that she needed to stay with her husband and just pray through it. She needed to stand by her man. That was her responsibility. When I heard this, it just shook me. I was like, what you mean? Like, she's being abused. Like, what are we going to do for her? So having that type of response, that's why I really target now going to churches. You would be surprised how many churches do not even talk about domestic violence, do nothing during Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I like trying to push those doors open, because there's so many people in the church who are experiencing that.
Yeah. We had a brief conversation about that before actually coming on to the discussion. But, it is a sad thing, because a lot was covered up by the early church. And I believe it may have been because, early churchgoers and people in the church felt like it was a reflection on who they are as Christians. And in the Black community, shaming is huge. So I don't want to look bad. Don't bring shame onto this family. Don't bring shame onto this church. Don't water me down as a Christian. But I want to believe that, I know it's the case in my church, but more churches are now open to really being help centers. And, you're always going to find that there's shaming in places, but the church really should be the place where you can go for help. I mean, your sisters and brothers should be able to, embrace you and encompass you with the love and support that you need to get through. It should be a safe place. And I think it's becoming more that way, but I can definitely attest that it hasn't always been that way. I want to move to a question, but I can't, because Candy's looking like she about to bust if she don't make this comment. So What do you have to say about this issue in the church?
We have to remember that the people in the church are people.
Church people are people. People who go to church.
And the same people that's in your house, that's on the street, that's shaming and blaming you, are the same people that's in the church, and they have not been educated. And yes, we've got to go in the church and educate them. I mean, that's like saying, okay, I'm going to take somebody that's in the church, and I'm going to go to them and have them help me with my math homework. I'm going to have them help me to teach, to fix my car. I'm going to have them help me with all of these things. If they are not knowledgeable about it, why are we going there? And it's because the church has been the steadfast place in the past, but the past is the past. We got to bring the future in and educate people. And let me just say this one thing, and then I'll let you go. When we say to people, What happens in the house stays in the house. Don't tell anybody else. What we're really doing is we are grooming our children for a lifetime of violence. Because if I'm not giving you
Yeah.
the right information, then I'm giving you the wrong information. And so when somebody starts beating my butt, I'm not going to go back and tell anybody, because you already told me, don't tell nobody, keep it to yourself. And we also say things like, you're a liar. And so once you
Right.
do that to especially a young person, they're going to shut it down. And I'm not going to tell you anything else because I know you don't want to hear it.
Right. Well, I absolutely agree with that. If you're not telling me the right thing, then you're telling me the wrong thing, even if it's by way of a message. But I will say, just to wrap up the whole church thing, you're right. The church isn't necessarily the expert in any given area or expertise in any given area, but the church should be a place of support in all areas. You should be able to go to the church and confidently get it out and be accepted. You should be able to do that. You should get the support you need to like pray with you and point you in some direction. So that's what it should be. And I'm hoping and I'm seeing that church is moving, in modern day time, more in that direction. And it's no longer our grandmama's church where we couldn't talk about it,
We do a lot of programs in churches. We partner, we share information and resources. We do a lot of our programs actually working with youth and young adults in churches. And one of my partner agencies, Bernita Walker with Project Peacemakers, goes to lots of churches and trains their lay ministers and the first ladies. So we're seeing a lot more people be open and responsive, probably because they're also seeing a lot more violence in their family.
Yes.
We've had a lot of support as well, because the Genesee Center, we've partnered with many churches to bring awareness to, the domestic violence. And we've had very favorable, response to all of the information that we've been giving and the support. So it's been going well with the churches.
Okay. Well, let me, before we run out of time, and along the lines of the strong Black woman, I want to get to another question on YouTube. Allison is on YouTube, and she has an interesting question or statement, actually. She says, we feel pressure to protect our men from systems that have caused harm, even when they are hurting us. And when you talk about the strong Black woman, Charmin, yes. What do you do when you don't want, I don't want this abuse, but I also don't want to send my brother, upstate to be further abused himself? I mean, it comes a time when you can't worry about that, but how do you manage that in the moment?
Absolutely. And it's just about, again, getting the word out, getting that, reaching out, that olive branch, letting folks that look like us understand and know that there are places that can help you, that you can trust us. Because the reality is, like I said earlier, that the whole Black woman, strong Black woman syndrome that we have in that persona, it's because we put everything and everyone in front of us. And when I said also, that includes race, right? That includes racism. It includes us knowing what is going to happen to this Black man, and does he really deserve all of that just because we were into it. We internalize this strength that we're supposed to have, and we then protect everyone, and that is the men that we should have to protect.
Unfortunately, as a strong Black woman, we take on the mantle of he's doing this to me, but will he get a punishment that fits his crime? And that's unfortunate, but that's another thing that's placed on the shoulders of the Black woman. I have one more question, but before we get out of here, I want to bring on Regina Wilson from California Black Media for a comment. Regina, come on through and holler at us. She's from California Black Media.
Well, thank you so much, Yolanda, for, moderating this discussion. I've been able to listen to it, and just, I hope that it's helped anyone who's listening. I hope that everyone will, say where, if someone is experiencing domestic violence situation, let them know where they can go to get help. And I just, I truly appreciate this. I appreciate Blue Shield Foundation for allowing us to have this opportunity to partner with the Black press to be able to bring programming, to be able to bring
Absolutely.
articles. If people have not read the articles, the LA Focus did a series of 8 articles on this issue that were just wonderful, and help tell stories so that people know where to go. They know that they're not alone, and most importantly, know that this is not just a Dr. Rose Parker issue. This is not just, who anyone else's just personal issue. That domestic violence really is a community-based issue. It's something that could affect all of us. And we hope that through these series of discussions, and just getting to know one another, getting to know and hearing other folks' stories, that we are able to better understand what we should do to be a better neighbor, to be a better friend, to be a better church, just to be able to be better, to make sure that if someone is in need, we know where to point them into the right direction. We don't just hang it and say, hey, that's for the next person to deal with, or that's for law enforcement to deal with. That we look at this, not that you have to go in and be in the middle of a domestic violence fight, but if you see something, say something, offer some support, offer some of the resources, just so that people know that they have a place to go and they don't have to suffer in silence. So I want to thank everyone. I also wanted to let everyone know that if you registered for tonight's event, LA Focus is going to be sending out a brief survey on, just your feelings about the overall work that we've been doing around domestic violence. And we'll have a $5 gift card for you if you fill out that survey and return it to us. So thank you so much. And I will let you guys close out.
Okay. Well, in closing, there are just 2 things I would love to run over. We talked about that there is a lot of commonality in abusers, the various abuses. And I just wanted to just name a few red flags, a few things that you can look out for that seem to be common among abusers. A jealous person. And I'm talking about the jealousy that's outside of the norm. Irately jealous and possessive and controlling, cruel, just cruel. You meet somebody and they just don't have, a kind demeanor. They lack empathy. They manipulative. They try to sabotage your friendships and control you in that way. Be on the lookout for people who have static role ideas, like men do this and women do that, and they want you to stay in that box. It's a form of control. I'm recalling the late and great Miles Monroe talking about how after World War II, men came home from the war, and at that time, women had taken on jobs and become independent because they had to hold it down. And men felt their identities stolen and became not stolen, but, diminished and became more abusive in that time. We see that now, ironically, throughout the pandemic, trying to figure out who you are when you can't do some of the things that you have attached your identity with and to. So we want to watch out for those things. Were you going to say something, Candy?
Oh, I was going to wait for you to finish, but yeah, I have a couple of things I wanted to share.
Okay.
Specifically, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I definitely wanted to put those red flags out there. I want to say, because I think it's very, very important, that there's never an excuse good enough to justify abuse, and that abuse is learned. So yes, with that, I want to hear from each of the panelists as we close out. If we could just get a comment from you briefly.
Okay, so the first, and real brief, If someone tells you that they are going to kill you, believe them. If they never put their hands on you, but they tell you that, that is their intention, to kill you. And we have to learn to believe people when they say that they need help. And if you're looking for help, there are all kinds of organizations. Our organization is a dual domestic violence and sexual assault organization, and we are focused on creating the awareness to prevent it. And this Thursday, we're starting our year-end series. It's called A Story to Tell. And we will be sharing 10 stories of 10 survivors and thrivers. So go to our website and sign up so you can get this information. And there will always be a list of organizations, including Genesee and some of our other partners that we work with. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any parting words for you, Sherman?
I wanted to add to your list because sometimes, you know, folks, I won't say just say women or men, we think it's kind of okay and it's kind of cute when folks text me as soon as I walk to the car. And you know, when you get in the car, you get 5 more texts and they always want to know where you are. And at first, you know, you think that he loves me so much, he wants to know where I am all the time. So watch out for someone who wants to know where you are every minute of the day.
All the time.
Right. And if you're getting 30 texts in an hour, that is a big problem, a big red flag and a big problem. But I wanted to say as well that the Genesee Center, I mean, we are here. And I know there are some organizations that may not take boys. They may not take women with sons over a certain age or big families or small families, but we take anyone who has experienced domestic violence.
That's a really good resource. And Dr. Rose Parker. Uh-oh, I think you might be muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to also add to that list. One of the other things they, you know, try to isolate you, control who you talk to, and, you know, stalking, all that kind of stuff. And then I wanted to say that saving our women has saving our families, and we have saving our men. We're in the process of trying to, you know, get our transformation home for men together so men can learn the relaxation techniques, because nobody wants to go to a group called anger management. But if you have the relaxation techniques so they can learn how to defuse, you know, because a lot of times during holidays, Super Bowls, all these heightened things is when it's most dangerous for women. And what I was trying to say earlier about our group is that we try to build their self-confidence to give them the strength, because if you don't, they'll leave and come back, because they'll leave and see there's nobody. And then you got the kids saying, we want daddy, you know, and so then she goes back. But when you build her up and let her know, you know, if you got a husband that's, you know, trying to hurt you, start preparing your action plan. Prepare your action plan, start putting stuff up, you know, just start preparing. So what we do, we just build them up so they're strong. I've had women that left, moved to another state, you know, and just thank me for just getting them strong internally, that you are valuable.
Right. I like what you're saying. Get yourself a plan. Start to mentally put that thing together. Right. And, you know, and make sure that when the time comes and when the time is right, you're able to get out of there safely. I have definitely appreciate that. And I know that the time is running short, so we want to make sure we talk to you.
One penny thing. And then the men, a lot of times, some men abusers don't want to hurt. They don't want to hurt you. You know, they don't want to hit you. It was embedded in them when they were little, or they saw their dad do it. So a lot of them want help, you know, and we're here to help saving our women. You know, we're here to help you.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you mentioned that too. And I want to say it's not always women that are being abused. Sometimes women are the abusers as well. And men fall a victim and prey in these same ways. So I do appreciate you mentioning that too. Okay, Dwayne, any parting words?
Well, first, I just want to say that I'm just grateful for everyone on this panel, all just giving some really helpful and necessary surviving information. Dr. Rose, thank you for sharing. She shared, Saving Our Women and Families will help abusers. I've been getting that question a lot from men when I go out and speak is there help for abusers too? So I appreciate that. I want to say lastly that often our responses to others' traumas can breed shame. So I just want to encourage all of us to be open arms and open hearts and open minds when people may come and share, things with us so that God will give us the right words and the right responses so that they can get the help they need.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, ladies, I feel like we've only, tapped on just a drop in the bucket. I feel like there's just so much more to say, so much more that we can do, so much more that needs to be done. But I definitely appreciate each one of you coming on and sharing your stories, your resources, and just being a ray of light and hope, at the end of the tunnel for a lot of people. Before we get off, I definitely want to thank Lisa Collins from LA Focus for presenting us with this wonderful town hall tonight. Definitely. Hey, Lisa, definitely want to make sure we do that. Again, California Bank Foundation. We definitely want to make sure that we do that. California Black Media. We want to make sure that we get, thank all of you for allowing us to have this platform, have this discussion, put out these resources, and be of help. And who knows, maybe a part 2 is in order, but for now, listen, abuse is learned and abuse is never okay. It's never justified. Why? Because love doesn't hurt. So until next time, thank you all for joining us. And yeah, you guys be safe.